All right, so things just got much worse for Mr. Beast somehow. I mean, right when I thought, how much more could there be here? Then it gets revealed that Mr. Beast allegedly knowingly hired a registered offender to work for him, and he also had him in some of his videos, which might be the worst thing to come out about him yet, especially in combination with all the Chris Tyson allegations, because now we know he's had two alleged predators working for him, and he's clearly just careless when it comes to that kind of stuff because it definitely seems like he had a good idea of what Chris was up to, but just didn't care until he absolutely had to. And now also, since it was exposed that he knowingly hired a registered offender, that just gives even more credibility to that theory, because if he didn't care about what this guy did, then he probably didn't care about what Chris did either, which is obviously really concerning, especially since he has the biggest kids channel on YouTube. You know, to have these two in videos is a terrible look. So the recent news about the RSO came out because Dogpack404 made another video about MrBeast where he talked to another former employee who was part of a challenge where he had to stay in a room for a month and he could win $300,000. And he said he didn't make it the whole time because he started to lose his mind in there, and he said it was like torture. And he said now he's kind of traumatized from it. But I'm not going to go too much into that. If you want to hear about it, you check out the video. But I wanted to mostly just focus on the registered offender that they talked about towards the end of the video, because most of this was proven to be true, which I'll get into. But this is what MrBeast's former employee had to say about it.
But that guy, from what I hear, I can't confirm or deny, from what I hear, he's on the registry for doing some not great stuff to some underage people. And they knew that. He's working at a channel that has underage people on and around and is targeted to underage people. And they covered up the fact that not only did he work there, but he was like the manager when it all started. And you know that he knew, and because he'll be in videos, he'll be in thumbnails, he'll be around. And whenever he is, he's wearing a mask. Why would you wear a mask? Why would you conceal your face? It's like, what are you concealing? That you are a registered under? And that your face could be looked up on a thing? How much more can you literally cover up a sex offender with a physical mask? Like, do I have to, is it more on the nose? Or I don't know why they let him go, because there's rumors back and forth. You know, so I don't know why they let him go, but he did leave at one point. Even if that guy didn't do anything, they still knew about it and he was still around. And what if he's one of the people in the Discord servers? What if he's not? I don't know. But when I was there, they called him Delaware. It's like, why do you call him Delaware? I didn't know. Apparently they called him Delaware because he's not allowed to go back to Delaware. That's his nickname? Colloquially? Like, you know, yeah, it's Delaware. Don't ask him why, you know? And Jimmy knew about it? The likelihood that he didn't know is astronomically low.
So people figured out that it is true. Delaware, the guy that worked for MrBeast and was in some of his videos, is on the list, and his victim was 11 years old. And people figured this out because Delaware is actually related to another former MrBeast employee. He's Jake the Viking's brother-in-law. And if you remember, since Jake has left MrBeast, he's spoken out a lot against him and Chris. Like when everything came out about Chris, he tweeted Jimmy knew, which, like I pointed out in my video, and I'm sure a lot of people did, that also means he knew as well and did nothing about it. And now it turns out it's even worse than that, and he knew that his registered sex offender brother-in-law was working for MrBeast as well. Even before he started working there, he said that he got him the job there. So this guy is just a massive hypocrite, but he did make a statement on it. This is what he said. Here's the truth. Yes, Delaware is my brother-in-law. Yes, he's a RSO. When he was 21, a 16-year-old girl accused him and others of SA when she was 11. Delaware took a plea deal. That's why there's no jail time, but he still had to register. His nickname isn't Delaware because he can't go back to Delaware. He's from Delaware. That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard. He's been back several times. He was also hired before I was, and was actually the reason I got hired at MrBeast. Before being hired, Delaware sat down with Jimmy and Jimmy's mom and explained to them everything. So yes, Jimmy knew. But again, this incident happened in 2010. Delaware was hired in 2017, 2018. He was also let go from the company before I was. And there's some more he had to say, which I'll get to. But, you know, he said MrBeast knew about it before he was hired, which I know Jake the Viking, he kind of lost all his credibility here. It's hard to trust him. But I definitely believe that MrBeast knew about it. You know, if you're hiring somebody, you're going to do a background check, and that's probably going to be one of the first things you see. So it makes sense that he had to do a lot of explaining to MrBeast, and I guess he bought it, which is crazy. I mean, to have a kids channel and hire somebody like this when you could hire anybody else. You know, I'm sure this guy wasn't that necessary. I don't know why MrBeast would want to have this guy on staff and in videos if he knows. I mean, the guy probably told him that nothing happened and it was all just a misunderstanding or something. But I mean, if you're on that list, there's really no explaining you could do. Like after MrBeast saw that, I don't know why he'd want to listen to anything this guy has to say. He should have just been like, all right, we'll find somebody else to hire. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard to just find somebody that doesn't have a history like that. I mean, this guy Delaware is one of the worst people he could have hired. I mean, he was putting his whole channel at risk by hiring this guy, and also putting his fans at risk too, which is the more important part. So also Jake the Viking, he said Delaware was supposed to be a behind the scenes manager, but in a couple of videos he was asked to partake because we needed people. He was reluctant, especially in the straight jacket video because of his charges, and that's why he wore a mask. So Jake's making it sound like Delaware didn't even want to be in videos and they just needed extra people, so MrBeast or his employees talked him into it, which would make things even worse. But either way, just the fact he was in a video is bad enough. You know, if he were just working behind the scenes, that's one thing and it'd still be really bad. But the fact that MrBeast gave him a platform and one of the biggest platforms on the internet, like you could blow up from just one video, like starring in one of his videos, and you gain a huge following of young fans. So if MrBeast knew this guy's history and still gave him a platform and had him in his videos, then that is really bad. I mean, there's no defending that. Even though Jake is basically defending it, which is ironic because originally he was calling out MrBeast for protecting Chris, but now it sounds like he was protecting his brother-in-law and still is. Like, this is what he had to say. Delaware's charges are set to be dropped this fall. He has been nothing but a good person, an amazing husband to my sister, and the best father to my two nieces that I could ever ask for. They want no part in this and want to just live their lives away from the limelight. I understand why anyone would be upset and frustrated over these allegations, and I do not blame them. Hurting kids in any way is completely unacceptable, but in the case of Delaware, I firmly believe he did nothing wrong and look forward to the day those charges are dropped. Thank you. Yeah, so this is just a terrible look for him. I mean, I don't think he has any right to call out MrBeast anymore if he's going to defend his brother-in-law. And that's pretty much what everybody in the comments is saying as well. And also just talking about how bad MrBeast is. But it's crazy Jake would even involve himself in all this, like with all the Chris Tyson and MrBeast drama. Like him knowing his brother-in-law has a similar history, you would think he'd just stay out of it because also, of course, that's going to get brought up at some point. But I guess he just did not think this through. So in the process of him trying to take down MrBeast, I think he's also accidentally taking down himself as well. But obviously the MrBeast story is much bigger. Like this guy, I don't even know if he has that big of a following anymore. And I think the only time he gets attention is when he's talking about MrBeast. So he kind of just screwed himself here. But same thing with MrBeast. Like he is in some serious trouble after this. You know, it seems like everything is starting to fall apart and there's just so much for him to address at this point. And I don't know how he could even address it. Like he's probably just going to try to push through it, but I don't know if that's going to work. Also, I just saw he announced he's launching a toy line, which is wild. I mean, I don't think the timing for this could have been any worse. It's crazy. But he must have just had a lot invested into it. Apparently, he's been working on it since January because you would think with all the stuff coming out and everything going on, he would wait to release this, but I guess not. So that's about it for this video. But if you guys want more content from me, I just posted a new video on Patreon about the most recent Kill Tony episode. And also Chris D'Elia, he's starting to lose his mind. And Brian Callen, he's starting to call out Brendan Schaub a little bit. And there's just a ton of other stuff on there, over 80 videos. There's a lot to go through. If you're a fan of the channel, I highly recommend it. Make sure you check it out. Put a link in the description.